for you to be here. I can't wait to just chum it up over some sales chat, some in the trenches chat of what's going on this week.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, for having me. I really appreciate it.
What are you seeing on DOT Blitz Week? Are you seeing things easy, a little tight? What's the story here?
Yeah. So earlier in the week, it almost felt like a nothing burger starting out. Rates hadn't really moved. Trucks were, showing up to pickups, and I was thinking, I was kind of getting nervous, to be honest with you. We want to see the market tighten up a little bit. We're waiting for that pivot, waiting for that change, and I don't know. I'm kind of hearing some rumblings that might be happening a little bit this morning. We've had some fallouts, some trucks kind of asking for more money, things like that. So that could be a good sign. Could be.
So, Chris, obviously you have got quite a bit of time in this industry. Give us a rundown. You're with First Star Logistics, a brokerage that's been around for decades, obviously right there in Cincinnati. But give us a rundown. Give us a 30,000 view of First Star, man.
Yeah. So, a lot of brokers out there in the industry, I got picked up in a bar, in a weeknight from a TQL recruiter, and the rest is history. So
that's beautiful. Love it first sight.
Yeah. So 5 years there, about 3 in sales. I opened their Jacksonville office back in 2013. Transitioned to a training role soon thereafter, about a year after that. Did a couple years in training, moved up through that department. Got laid off. We won't go into the details there. Things happen.
Yep.
And then, sat my time out, did some time at Magellan Transport Logistics out of Jacksonville. So any Jaguars fans out there, the official transportation partner with the Jacksonville Jaguars, was there for a couple years.
Love it.
Transitioned to Trucker Tools.
Ooh.
Helped build their compliance department. And during that role, I was consulting with brokerages, mainly enterprise brokerages, on how to improve their tracking compliance, which was a lot of, revamping of operations, right? And then I did what most sane people do. I quit my job in the middle of a pandemic and thought I need to open a hair salon with my wife.
Oh, yeah. All right.
We sold our house. We moved back to Cincy. We opened a hair salon and got that up and running. And then, I begged for her to let me not be the receptionist anymore. And in the fall of 22, I came to First Star, and the rest is history. So
I love that.
That's awesome.
I am such a fan of the story. I think it's kind of fun that sometimes it's kind of fun to jump through different stepping stones to get to where you're at, and you learn something along the way each trip, whether it's good or bad. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I love that you did that.
Well, what I love about that, and what you said there, you're not afraid to bet on yourself. It sounds like you can't be afraid in this industry to bet on yourself. How you mentioned over COVID you left and tried to doing your own thing. That takes a lot of cojones to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, scary time to just leave and
go open a hair salon,
right.
Which I can imagine, honestly. There was a lot of challenges. You got masks around ears. You can't get that high and tight.
I need that fade.
I honestly, I think I got a decent fade. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think it looks nice.
It looks great.
Thank you.
I would know.
Yeah, Chris, give me a rundown. You obviously are working for First Star. You do training there. You do sales. You kind of bring the ship, and you guys are obviously bringing on agents and brokers, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about sales for a few here. When you are picking up, people at the bar to become your next rep, what are you looking for, man? Obviously a lot of people just look for similar things like yourself. You're just looking for other Chris Whites, right? But, what are you looking for when you're trying to find those next successful brokers, next successful agents?
Yeah. That's evolved over time. These days I would say I'm looking for more, intangibles, so, what are some, are these people obsessed with something, right? Are these people putting in extra effort somewhere else? What are their interests? Do they have, the ability to be, um, obsessed, right? So I'm trying to look for that. I'm also looking for experience. And so, training's a big part of what I do. In a lot of ways, I feel like it's my superpower. And so, finding an experienced guy that got washed out, a lot of times, they feel as though they weren't supported properly. And so I try to find those people as well.
Mm.
You mentioned training, and one thing that catches my eye is we always get a lot of people in our comments asking about us doing training. Jared loves sales, loves cold calling on our channel. What does training look like with you? Are you making cold calls and they're kind of sitting back watching, or what does training look like with Chris White at First Star?
Great question. So, really, my first step is I want to take a step back, get out of their way, give them the tools, let them start feeling it out. And what I'm looking for is, is that person a self-starter, right? When are they going to start to take action? And so really that first week, I'm kind of trying to gauge, are they going to start making calls on Tuesday? Are they going to make calls on Friday? So that's kind of first step. That tells me, are they confident, or is there something missing that I need to try to fix or fill a gap?
I like that.
I do too. How do you build up? I think confidence is probably one of the more interesting things. Let's make a Madden player for a second here and grab a line cook from Red Lobster.
Okay.
I'm just throwing it out there. They just shut him down, right? So you grab one of the best line cooks you can find, right?
Okay.
How are you building let's make this guy a Madden player. How do you build confidence? Because I think that's one of those scores that you got to bump up through the roof. How do you build confidence? Do you try to get them a short win, a quick win? What's that look like in your world, man?
Really, I think the biggest thing for confidence, right, is having a strategy or a plan, and it just starts there. So, I'm a Marine, right? So I have that background. And so there's a saying in the military, right? When it hits the fan, all you resort back to your training, right? And so naturally, the personalities that are successful in sales generally want to shoot from the hip. And so at that point, they resort back to their training. And so if they have none, they don't have, they just, that's when they get stuck. That's when you lose confidence. That's when you don't know what to say. You don't know what to do. And so confidence is preparation.
I love that right there. We're going to cut that one. Woo! That I totally agree. When it comes to just building up confidence, even with my kids, I'm always just like, okay, let's get the reps in. You're going to get confidence from doing 100 reps versus the kid that hasn't done any. And so I love that you're throwing it out there. In a real serious question though, if you were at Red Lobster, what would you eat?
Oh man, I can't remember the last time I was at Red Lobster.
Oh my gosh.
Cheddar biscuits.
I'm a crab Alfredo and biscuit guy. That's all I need in my life is a crab Alfredo and biscuit guy. So.
Okay, maybe a shrimp scampi. I don't know. Is that what you order there?
Yeah, I think you do. I think it's a shrimp. I think you have to.
We go endless shrimp all day.
Exactly, endless shrimp all day. Oh my gosh, I feel terrible for those people. Anyone watching from Red Lobster, hit us up. I'm sure we can find somebody that can make you a broker.
I want to calm everybody down. So I think they're filing for Chapter 11 so that they can save the operation. So your cheddar biscuits aren't going in.
Thank goodness.
That's what I needed.
Yeah, we need that.
I needed it. I needed it back. I love that.
Jerome here, he says, is First Star Logistics accepting carriers with no inspections? Jared likes to call Jerome the best.
No inspection for your carrier that's on the market. This guy's been around for 4 years. Can't find an inspection. Jerome, get out there this week. It's DOT Blitz week, brother. Yeah, let's get you a friggin' inspection, man. You know what I mean? How do carriers? We have a lot of carriers that watch us. hang out. How do carriers connect with First Star outside of like a load board?
Great question. They can reach out directly, so they can go to our website and reach out. We'd be happy to get them set up. We also have agents, and some of the agents run off of a different DBA and things of that sort as well. So,
got it. Okay, I can live with that. Obviously, branding is a large part of life. You obviously are on LinkedIn, talking about sales training. You post about it quite often. How does that come into your strategy for kind of winning in a sense? Are you seeing that you're able to get shippers the way you're posting? Are you seeing you're able to get more agents the way you're posting? What seems to be what works for your brand, and how are you kind of driving that aspect?
yeah. So, I'm a sales manager, but I've been doing a lot of hiring
Yeah.
recently. And so really I'm using it to build my network. I also, when I hire somebody onto my team, one of the first things I do is require them to build out a LinkedIn and connect with me. And so I'm trying to, connect with as many, people inside the industry so I can get those second and third connections. And then I teach, using LinkedIn as a prospecting tool. And so that helps. It's really just to find names sometimes. So there's layers, there's levels of how to use LinkedIn.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. With your team, I'm sure you guys touch base every week, obviously, but what do you see that's working for them? Is it, maybe last week it was making phone calls, or maybe hammering emails, or using LinkedIn as a prospecting tool? What has seemed to be working for you guys? Obviously, you don't have to give us your secret sauce, but what do you see working lately?
Yeah. So, what works is the fundamentals, just keep it simple. I'm big on simplicity. We can make it as complex as we want. We can make it as simple as we want. And so the main thing, day one stuff would be, make sure we're qualifying immediately. I don't need to talk to the person in charge to qualify them to see if there's somebody I want to pursue. And so, qualifying is absolutely key at the beginning. That way, when you look at those 75 prospects, like, you have to know that those guys have freight, right? Um, and so, honing in on your ability to qualify with a gatekeeper, with a dock worker, with anybody within the organization as quickly as possible.
I think this is something like we may have to go deeper into this. This is something that I think a lot of people struggle with. It's just qualifying.
Yeah. It's pipeline management. And step one is, do the people move freight?
Yeah, absolutely. Like in your experience, how are people qualifying that exact situation? Because, we get a lot of people on here that are somewhat new. And they're like, well, I don't even know if they have freight. And I'm like, well, they have a dock door. But that's the simple concept, right? But, in your experience, and these new guys, what are they doing when they're picking up the phone? What kind of questions are they asking, or what are they doing to qualify things? Because I think this is such an interesting aspect.
Yeah. So, if we're in the classroom, and we're talking theory and strategy and things like that, it's very simple. Do you move full truckload? Do you use outside carriers? And then how many, right? The challenge comes, and this is where, you have a newbie become a veteran, right? If I make a phone call and the first thing I say is, are you guys moving full truckload? They know who I am, right? And they're like, we get 100 of these a day, blah, 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 right? And so I like to use boxing analogies. If it was day one and you decided you wanted to become a boxer, and so you walk into a boxing gym, chances are that coach is throwing you in the ring to let you get punched in the face and see if you want to do it again, right? So the idea is, how many times are you going to get hit in the face before you start to move, right? And so finding out different ways to ask that question, knowing who your audience is, right? That receptionist may be some 19-year-old college student who's doing, her homework while she's answering phones. And so she's got no loyalties, right, to this $8.50 an hour job. And so talk to her,
Hmm.
um, hey, do they have big do you have big trucks coming in here? Do you have dock doors in the back? Things of that sort.
Yeah, I like that. I'm a big fan of that. That's such an interesting question. People ask us all the time. Well, how do I know, who to call? And so I love that you're kind of walking through that. When it comes to getting into that veteran status, going from that novice to a veteran, is it just the punches?
Yeah, trial and error.
Yeah.
How'd you learn how to ride a bike?
Simple enough. Yeah, it's literally just the punches. You know what I mean?
Pain is the best teacher.
Yeah, I agree.
We get asked this question a lot too, is, well, Jared, how many times should I be, make a cold call in a day, or maybe emails? How many emails should I be sending? In your opinion, what should we be doing throughout the day, whether it's making phone calls or sending emails? Obviously we got to qualify the leads first, but how often should we be picking up the phone every day? How often should I, or maybe the wait between a follow-up call? Give us your feedback on that sort of aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say more.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't get to determine that number for anybody. Right.
Mhm.
And so, but I challenge them, is that the best you can do?
Right.
Right. So.
Yeah, you definitely got to give yourself an opportunity, I guess, you know what I mean? And with the phone being off, you don't really give yourself an opportunity to get where you want to be. So,
right.
And there's never just one answer, right?
Right.
So, usually the answer is a question that's internal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what should I be doing? Well, are you doing as much as you can now? Then maybe try a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of shifting gears a little bit over to operations. Obviously, the fraud side of things is kind of an interesting game right now. Each week you're kind of looking, well, what are they going to do this week? Which is kind of a weird way to run a business, because they keep getting better, right? And when I mean I mean like double brokers or any kind of fraudulent activity. You're hearing of loads getting stolen, just, blatantly, just, I'm going to get in the truck and take your load, and then we're just going to go. But, talk to us about how you've managed fraudulent activity, but also how are you kind of staying your ear to the ground to make sure you're keeping up with it?
Yeah. So anytime, trying to think how I want to frame this. So for double brokers, right? I think they rely on bad habits, right? One of the biggest things for me, and protecting my team and First Star and our customers, products, is, doing things the right way, right? When nobody's looking. Simple, stuff like that. And so, setting proper expectations with your reps and teaching them the proper way, and then not letting any room to deviate from that plan. And so we take our dispatch our dispatch process extremely serious here. And, double brokers have to have time in order to succeed at that. And what you find, I would say 98% of the time, is that the broker, took an action that was ill-advised. And what came out of that was a double brokering situation or something negative.
Yeah. I was just reading Tire Killer's comment here. I had someone borrow my dry van because the shipper wouldn't load the reefer. You may have to go into that a little bit further here, Tire Killer. They just hook up to that thing and just take off. I think this is as we get past Tire Killer, this is kind of a random one. I think you kind of hit it on the head. You you see brokers that may just be missing a step or maybe cutting an edge or a corner. They do prey on, bad habit brokers, and it may not be the bad habit, even just it could be just the people, not the actual brokerage. It could just be, hey, I've talked with Josh 4 or 5 times now. I'm going to call him back, see if he'll slip up on this one.
Yeah, they're getting better with their questions and their
They
tactics.
are. Yeah, they're getting a lot better with their tactics, their questions. And I've also seen them try to I was at a brokerage where pretty much they just kept calling from different numbers, same person, different companies, and just kind of prying to see if they could get into the conversation or not. Yeah. And so it was definitely, they're getting extremely good at this. It's very interesting to see.
It's amazing though, right? So if I don't send them any pickup information, and I'm talking about addresses and pickup numbers, until that driver is empty and I'm in full contact with that driver, right? Now I don't have to chase them.
Yeah.
Right? They're calling me. Hey, I'm empty. I need that pickup. Okay, you got your paperwork? No, I'm waiting on paperwork. Okay, call me when you get your paperwork, right? And now they're checking in, right? They're the ones doing my check calls for me. They need me in order to succeed at their job. And rather than me chasing them around and trying to determine when do I call my customer and let them know that I'm bad at my job.
Yeah. Yeah. Having bad conversations with clients, although is not fun, seems to be a part of this industry. You just, trucks fall off or there's some crazy stuff. But having that conversation is not, the truck that we hired isn't the truck that you're getting. That doesn't go well. No. You know what I mean? It's not the ideal situation.
No.
Oh my gosh.
Especially if they're paying, right?
Oh
yeah. Yeah. It's a good paying load. We're good, long-term customer. Gosh dang, that's intense. Obviously we're seeing a cycle, where it kind of is. I'm assuming we're just dragging across the bottom, at this point. I'm kind of a fishing guy, so I'd like to, talk through that motion of things. The beautiful thing with this industry is there's always a light. And I feel like at some point here, I don't know what that spurs it or what kind of kicks off. Maybe it's the election. Maybe it's, maybe it's today's inflation report. I don't know. Consumer pricing index comes out today, right? There's a lot of different things that could sway all of a sudden everything. But, what for the next 6 months, what seems to be the pattern of what you guys do? Is there anything that you do differently in bad times versus good times? Or are you, there's always hope, there's always light. Just how far is the light out?
Yeah. Okay. So I've always been big on value selling, right? And as I've, migrated to different industries, and even companies in the same industry, that's not a philosophy that's the same everywhere you go. And so, I think that value selling, right, can bridge those gaps. Whether the market is tight or loose or good or bad or whatever, because what you're doing when you're value selling is you're trying to identify what's important, right, versus price, right? If you're based on price, right, somebody's going to come in, they're going to be better, right? You got nothing going for you when you're just trying to meet or beat, right, that other price. And then you get yourself in bad situations and all of that stuff. And so I think value selling, right, is the light, right? That is your hope. The hope is that, you're going to be able to find an organization, right, that is doing better than most and that has something specifically challenging that hopefully you can fix.
Give us I love the value selling concept. Give us kind of a 2 cents of what that means. How do you value sell when you're on the phone, or how do you value sell in person? What's that look like?
Yeah. So first off, it starts with a mindset, right? Like, I don't think I've ever called any shipper and they were like, hey, we want to bring you on, but we want to, make sure that you're a good fit for us. So we're going to let you run this Dallas to Chicago lane for us and see how you do. Right. So they never pick the easiest lane for you to run. Right. It's usually like, hey, we've got this load that picks up in North Dakota that we're running into, Washington. We're having, all kinds of issues with. So first is mindset, right? Just know that, the first load you get with anybody isn't going to be an easy load. It isn't going to be a desirable. The rate's probably upside down. Why is that? Load a trouble load. Well, they misquoted it. And now they're looking for somebody to come and solve that problem for them, right? Now, once you solve it, right, then there may be future opportunities. And you just have better luck when you're trying to sniff that out. And it's more personal. It's going to build that relationship. It's about partnerships. It's about what you're good at and what they're good at, and aligning when you can. And I just think that it's more long-term
Yeah.
success.
Yeah, I definitely getting more people into that mode. We deal with so many people that are in a kind of a transactional mode, and they take a transactional approach to even building their company and building what they do. You know what I mean? And so going to this mindset, going to that aspect of, we have Samantha Jones on who comes on and talks about sales and things like that. And she always talks about, hey, if you start looking for contracts, you're going to find contracts. It's just a matter of changing the way you sell, the way you do things. So I love that. That's a great piece, Chris. Just because I think it's so important that more people do this. This is the best. Just take the time to keep turning over rocks. You got to do that. But while you're turning over rocks, provide some value.
Yeah.
I love that.
I'd be interested because I've had this popped up last week. One of the brokers that I usually get phone calls from brokers, weekly, and just kind of let me know how business is going. Well, they had a shipper that called them and said, hey, I think we're going to start going in this direction. They didn't give them a reason why, but that broker felt defeated. He pretty much got let go from that, that contract or whatever it may have been. But I'd be curious on if that's happened to you, Chris, and how did you bounce back from something like that? Or how does someone bounce back from something like that?
Yeah. Of course it's happened to me. I think it happens to everybody. I mean, we all, if you're in this game long enough, you're gonna get stabbed in the back, right?
It's dog eat dog world, yeah.
And that's the ebbs and flows of the industry. But you ready for this? So this is the secret sauce. Never stop. Okay. What kills brokers in this industry is they land a couple shippers, right? Ego goes through the roof because they're 20 something and they're making more money than they ever have. And then something changes in the market, or they get double brokered, or there's a claim, whatever, may or may not be their fault. And the business ends. And so the question to them is, why weren't you developing your bench? Why did you think this was going to last forever? So many people I've seen just get washed out like chutes and ladders, just because they were like, man, I've put 18 months into this thing. I deserve a break. And so that stupid voice wins you stupid prizes.
Gosh, well said, man.
That's the best thing I've heard. Oh my gosh!
I could have said it perfect.
I'm going to say that to my kid
awesome.
tonight. Well, let's just. I love that. I have that stupid voice is going to bring stupid prizes.
I do like that.
Oh my gosh, that is so friggin' good. Chris, I would be kind of curious. Obviously, you're fairly. You look like you're in pretty good shape. You're, former Marine here. What are you doing to kind of keep in shape or keep your mind, sharp?
I thought you'd never ask.
I want to guess. Is it boxing?
Is it boxing?
No. I was at the gym this morning at 5 a.m. So I try to, get in a morning workout, 4 to 5 days a week. That way, when I come into the office, I'm hot. I'm hot and heavy. I'm older, So I'm 38.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything about your age, but yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
When I was 28, right, I wasn't probably in as good a shape. I probably didn't have as good of habits. And so, there's a change that happens, later on. And so, I don't drink as much, I don't go out as much. I'm running a business outside of, working here. I have a wife, we have a family, so it's just focusing on the things that really matter, and everything else is just noise and distraction, and just staying focused, right? And so that 5-letter word, right, can change everything. And so I try to stick in my routine. I try to just do things that are impactful, and I try to keeps me out of trouble, right, keeps me happy, all those things.
Yeah, I love that. Are you reading anything? Do you read or listen to podcasts that kind of helps you stay, fresh in the mind or anything like that?
Yeah. So you know i I'm an audiobook guy, right? The moment I sit down and I start reading, my mind runs, and then I have to read that page 2 or 3 times, right? So I am a podcast in the background, YouTube in the background kind of guy. I would say over the last 5 years, heavy. I started to get really heavy into a lot of those mindset podcasts, maybe like Chris Willicks, a lot of Joe Rogan, a lot of Jocko Jocko, and a
Yeah.
number of Navy SEALs, and David Goggins, all that stuff, all that wild stuff.
That's
Okay.
awesome. You have any crazy like hobbies that you
Ooh, crazy hobbies that I actively do.
just get obsessive about, or
Yeah. So, and this is kind of like a Rogan thing, right? So, I've been doing sober October, I'd say, for the last 4 years. And so every October I'll do some variation of a sober October. I've done just the basic one where you just, kind of stop drinking for the month. That was kind of like the first few. And I've taken it as far as, one year I went to the gym every day
Hmm.
that month as well. So I did 31 days in a row in the gym, sober October, and with 5 NFL games that year, it was difficult watching.
I can imagine.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, let's talk about sports for a second. Obviously, you are in the heartbeat here. You got the Reds, you got the Bengals. Are you in love with both? Are you in love with neither? What's on the brain when it comes to Cincinnati sports?
Yeah, so total homer, right? It's a baseball town. You know, the Cincinnati Reds were, first Major League Baseball team.
I could see 6.
And so huge into baseball here. And even though we're big into baseball, it is now officially football season, right?
Yeah,
So I think the Reds are like 5-19 or something.
yeah.
So we're already looking into football season. And the last few years for the Bengals have been really exciting.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's a great time to be in the city.
That's
Soccer team's doing good. I'm not a big soccer fan, but
yeah.
people that are love FC Cincinnati. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a great time.
That's
I
awesome.
love
That's
that.
so good.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you if you've ever gone. Have you gone to any of those?
I haven't. My wife's dying to go. I've heard amazing things about the stadium, as far as it being, really intimate.
Yeah.
And brand new. I go downtown all the time. I don't, Cincinnati's very walkable, and so it's right there. It's beautiful. But no, I haven't watched a game there. No.
You got to go. I went to a Rapids game, a Denver Rapids, Colorado Rapids game last year for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible. Like, I mean, you're watching. These guys were incredible soccer players, and you're like 40 feet from them. It was the awesomest thing ever. Every sport should mimic that intimacy when it comes to, like, if I could sit closer at a football game and a baseball game, and every sport should just have very small stadiums, in my opinion. I know that makes it more exclusive and harder to get a ticket, but it'd be. I mean, now the Reds are going to friggin' start handing out family passes with 4 pizzas and 2 sodas, and that'll be $20. You know what I mean? It's a struggle on that side of things. Chris, I have loved every second of you coming on. You provided so much value today. I've got some incredible quotes that I'm going to run with. I'm stealing your quotes. I mean, they're wonderful. You're always welcome on our show anytime you want to come on. Give us a rundown. How do people find you? How do we connect you with more people?
Yeah, absolutely. So feel free to look me up on LinkedIn. If you're local in the Cincinnati area and you're interested in getting back into brokerage, feel free to go to our website and you can apply directly there, or you can DM me on my LinkedIn page. And if you're an agent anywhere nationwide, and you're looking to switch teams or looking for more support or feel as though you're not getting the value that you feel like you should be getting from your partner, reach out as well. Right. So we have our own proprietary TMS. We make changes to the system all the time, and those changes are rolled out almost immediately. We pay commissions up to 70%. And so, come on. Grass is greener.
I love that.
Chris, I can't thank you enough, man. I'm really feel really blessed to have crossed paths with you. You're just full of knowledge. I love your LinkedIn stuff there. That's just a post that you put out because it's so real. It's real, man. Yeah. It's what people need to read. And if you're not connected with Chris, do it right now.
Yeah, go on.
And then start making some cold calls. But of course, thank you again for joining us. We'll definitely have to get you back on. And I definitely want to spend a day with Chris White one day, so I might need to get down to Cincinnati.
I do too.
And just spend the day in the life with you. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, do it. I'm an open book. If anybody has any questions, anytime.
That's awesome. We appreciate that.
Have a great day, Chris. Thanks for being on, man.